What's up, everybody? My name is Tucker. In today's video, we're going to be talking about some NBA teams with the most to lose this upcoming season. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like rating on it. Check out my socials up there, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we've got 5 teams on this list, beginning with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it's a bit more of a positive thing for Minnesota this year, although obviously the title of the video isn't especially positive. There are, some negative things to be afraid of Minnesota, but I think that the expectations for this year are certainly higher. For me, they definitely are. Minnesota has taken a while. They've taken a couple of years to build up and develop some young talent on this roster, but it feels like this year they've kind of got things figured out. And I know we've thought that about them before, but as long as they're healthy, this could be a play-in team this upcoming season. They could also win 20 games as they normally do, but I feel like the expectations should be a bit higher. Anthony Edwards had a good rookie season, should continue to grow and develop as a young player. Karl-Anthony Towns, as long as he's healthy, is one of the better bigs in the NBA. They've got tons of versatility. They've got a lot of different lineup options. Probably not going to be the best defensive team in the league this year, but still a team to keep an eye on. And I feel like they've got the head coaching thing figured out, especially on the offensive end of the floor as well. It's a team that started to look really good towards the end of last year, and if they can continue that momentum into this year, they should be a good team. But of course, the things that they have to lose this year are, 1, once again, disappointing on those expectations, and 2, if that is the case, the possibility of Karl-Anthony Towns rumors continuing to swirl, especially if just having D'Angelo Russell there isn't enough to keep him happy. And with the way this Ben Simmons situation is developing and the precedent that could possibly set in terms of how much players can really push their way out of a particular situation, even if they are young and have multiple years left on their contract, the way that Simmons does. If he's able to get out of Philly, Karl-Anthony Towns might have a better shot at getting out of Minnesota if that is something that he wants to do. And if they are one of the worst teams in the Western Conference once again this upcoming season, I wouldn't be surprised if those rumors start to pick up once again. So obviously a ton on the line for Minnesota, not only on the court because you feel like they can actually be good this year and you want them to capitalize on those expectations, but also if they don't capitalize on them, the possibility of Towns leaving is certainly looming. Next up, the New Orleans Pelicans. I've made, I believe, 2 different full videos about them this offseason, talking about how I didn't love what they did this offseason, and maybe they should be looking to trade Brandon Ingram and kind of previewing their year. The Zion stuff, it kind of is what it is at this point. I think everybody knows what's happening here with Zion, the possibility of him leaving while on his rookie contract, the just general unhappiness that it seems like continues to come out of that situation in New Orleans as it relates directly to Zion, and this front office's inability to this point to put a roster together that is going to be able to compete for a play-in spot, worst case in the Western Conference. It just hasn't happened. They've shifted some pieces, they've moved some things around, but they don't seem any closer this year to being a play-in team than they were in previous years, unless there is a significant jump from the young guys, especially on the defensive end of the floor. So similar to Minnesota, where you've got a younger team that has expectations. I think people realize the talent of Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson specifically on this roster as long as they're healthy. And so it's similar to the Minnesota thing, where if they don't reach those expectations, certainly they're losing out on that, losing out on what could be a good season, but also things are only going to get worse. And you could make the argument that if they are a 25-30 win team this year, someone has to get moved, someone more significant than the guys that they've already moved, and that person could be someone like Brandon Ingram. So again, just a team that you absolutely want to keep an eye on for this season in terms of where their expectations are, where they could possibly end up, and what them not meeting those expectations could then mean for them and for their roster. Next up, the New York Knicks. The next 2 teams I think are arguably 2 of the more overrated teams in the league going into next season. No disrespect to them. That doesn't even necessarily mean that they're going to be bad. I just think that people are putting a lot of value into teams that I don't think are going to be particularly good. And for New York, it's especially critical that they are good this season because we've talked about this in the past. They need to keep up this identity as a competent franchise. They need to continue to be a team that is winning 40, 45 games a year so that they look like a team to other stars that creates a good situation for star free agency or superstar free agency, despite the fact that has become less and less of a thing over the last couple of years because guys pretty much just ask for a trade if they don't want to be in a situation anymore. So free agency might not be as pivotal as much of a focal point of team building. For New York, it still absolutely is. And if they take a step back this season after using this offseason to presumably take a step forward, it could be a problem for them, especially when you start to look at their payroll moving forward. And they've got Julius Randle, they've got Evan Fournier, they've got a couple of other guys that they are paying over the next couple of seasons. There's a lot of momentum for New York, and the thing that they could lose this season, being referenced in the title, is just quite simply losing that momentum, and that would be pretty devastating for this team and for this franchise. Next up, Chicago. Again, another team that I think is being slightly overrated at this point. You want to talk about investment into being a good team next year. Chicago's got to be near, if not at the top of the list. The DeMar DeRozan sign and trade, the Lonzo Ball sign and trade, bringing in Alex Caruso. That's a ton of financial investment. That's a ton of investment from an asset perspective. And then you go back to the Nikola Vucevic trade from last season as well that ended up resulting in them giving up a top 10 pick in this most recent draft. And by the way, again, people don't seem to focus on this, but it is absolutely a thing. Zach LaVine's pending free agency and or potential trade request and or potentially being involved in a trade in general. At this point, I find it unlikely that LaVine is going to end up somewhere other than Chicago for next season. However, we've seen things like this turn bad pretty quickly, and Chicago, you could view some of the moves they made this offseason as a way to potentially hedge against LaVine leaving or being traded. If you look at the DeRozan stuff, the Lonzo Ball stuff, Alex Caruso, it's a lot of guards for a team to bring in, a lot of financial investment in guards for a team that's best player already was a guard. And I would compare this similarly. If you're gonna try and make the case that Zach LaVine could leave, I would compare this similarly to the Kyrie Irving situation from a couple years ago in Boston, where it seemed like he was going to stay. He even said that he was going to stay. LaVine has not, outwardly said that, but it was a team that had expectations, plenty of pieces around Irving, and it was just kind of a disaster of a year, and those expectations came crumbling down. And if that happens for Chicago this year, it could have massive negative effects on this franchise for years and years and years. Again, I doubt that's what happens. I also doubt that they are, a top 4 team in the East this year. They're probably a playoff team, but that's about where I put the ceiling for right now until I actually see it. But if things do go poorly, there's a lot on the line for Chicago to potentially lose this season. And then last up now on the list are the Golden State Warriors. This one might be a bit of an odd one, but I think it really just comes down to the decision-making process of the last 2 years for Golden State. When you have Klay get hurt once and then twice, they're trying to pick up the pieces from a dynasty that they really, dynasty probably not, but a really, really good stretch where they invested a lot financially, asset-wise, and eventually it's going to come crumbling down. And they kind of were trying to pick up the pieces from that. And the way they decided to do that was to trade away D'Angelo Russell for draft compensation, was to try and just get future picks and add young players to this roster. And what it's resulted in is Wiseman, Wiggins, Moody, and Kuminga. That's what they've gotten out of the last 2 years from a roster building perspective. And so now they're going to find out if they made the right choices. If Klay comes back fully healthy, if Steph is still awesome, if Draymond is still really good defensively, and the other pieces fit in well to the point where they're a top 4 team in the West this season, or if maybe they slow played it a bit too much and they should have been more aggressive in going out to get another player to capitalize on what is a shrinking contention window here, although it is one that I think is still open based off how Steph played last year and assuming that Klay Thompson is going to come back pretty well from his injuries. We're just going to find out the answer to that this season, I think. And it's going to be towards the end of the year because Klay won't come back until around Christmas or after. So it's not something we're going to find out immediately, which again puts even more pressure on this team, because if Klay was ready to go at the beginning of the year and they got to see this whole roster and then they were 20 and 30 at the trade deadline, then maybe they would go ahead and make a move. But if they don't really know before then, again, it's just really going to put to the test the decisions they've made over the last couple of seasons, their ability to develop young players like Wiseman, Kuminga, Moody, Andrew Wiggins' continued development as a perimeter player, what they can do at the 5 spot if Wiseman doesn't develop, or their ability to make a move in the middle of the year if something does come available, which it seems like is at least a relative possibility with Beal, Lillard, or Simmons if it gets to that point. So a lot of the line for them, it could be a very exciting season. I'm hoping that it is. I'm hoping the young guys develop and they play well within the system, and that Steph is still awesome, because I want to see that version of the Warriors again. I think they have a chance to be, kind of go back to that 2015 blueprint where everybody's just running around all over the place. They're shooting a ton of threes. It's not necessarily star-centric, but it's going to rely on health from Klay Thompson, development from the young guys. And if those things don't come to fruition, they might have missed a significant opportunity here to potentially contend this year. And then they're just going to end up being kind of a middling team for the next couple of years in the last maybe 1 to 2 years of Steph Curry's true prime as a superstar. But that is going to be the end of today's video. Thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know down in the comment section below what other teams you feel like have a lot on the line, a lot to lose this upcoming season, and I'll certainly take a look. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like rating on it. Check out more videos from me, the box on the screen. Check out my socials at the top of the screen as well. Once again, my name is Tucker. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.